You know, I believe it's a good day to take a simple walk with Rusty. Today, I want to talk about how God used animals in the Bible and in life. And what brought this subject on is we recently lost a pet of 14 years, Pocahontas. You'll hear more about her later. But that inspired me to think about how God used animals. And so I've got several examples of that, and I wanted to speak that. So anyway, my first thought was with Noah. Well, when Noah built the ark, he didn't have to go and hunt down animals and put them in the cage and bring them in. God called the animals and they came. The words in the Bible may not use the word called, but he did something to get the animals to come two by two. And some of the animals, the clean animals, actually came in groups of 7. So, you know, he used the animals. And after the 40 days and nights of rain and the ark came to a rest and Noah's wondering, okay, can we get out yet? You know, he sends out a raven. And I think it went out and about and finally went out and didn't come back. So several days later, he sends out a kind of a meeker animal, a dove. And the dove flies around, can't find a place to light, and comes back. Then 7 days later, I think he sends the dove out again, and the dove comes back with a olive branch with a leaf on it. And so that told Noah that, hey, it's getting time to get off the ark. I think he waited 7 more days and they got off and made sacrifices. I think about the children of Israel while they were in bondage in Egypt. You know about the plagues that God called on Egypt to get the Pharaoh to let them go. Well, he used animals in that. I consider insects animals too, but he used frogs, lice and gnats, flies, livestock, and locusts. So that's another example of something he used. After Pharaoh let the children of Israel go, and while they were wandering in the desert and was wanting something beyond manna and complaining, God sent them quail. He had a big wind come up and it blowed quail in. And they were 2 cubits deep. That's about 3 feet. And it says, the way I read the Bible, they were 3 feet deep for a day's walk in any direction. So there was a bunch of quail. But then again, there was a bunch of people to feed. So, you know, he caused the quail to end up being there. One of my favorite animal stories is Balaam's donkey. That's in Numbers 22:28. And Balaam's kind of he's not a real good dude. He recognizes the Lord, but he kind of dabbles in some other stuff. But anyway, his donkey stops on the trail there, and Balaam beats him. And finally, the donkey spoke in an audible language to Balaam and said, "Hey, guy, why are you doing this to me?" And he kind of said something, well, you stopped and you bumped my foot up against the wall here. He says, yeah, but, you know. Then he saw the angel with the sword. And what kept him from being killed was his donkey that stopped. And, you know, they had conversation back and forth for a little bit on this. I thought that was very interesting. I wonder what language the donkey spoke in. I don't know if it would have been Hebrew or Aramaic or what, but it wasn't in English. Anyway. And then, you know, Samson, he's another character that was flawed in many ways, like a lot of us. But Samson got mad because his father-in-law gave away his bride to somebody else. And for revenge, he rounded up foxes, I think about 300, and tied torches between their tails and turned them loose. And it burned down most of the crops and stuff of his father-in-law. So that's kind of interesting. That's in Judges 15, 1 through 5. And then another story is how he used animals with Elijah. Anyway, God told Elijah to go and basically kind of go hide for safety reasons. And he did. He sent him to this stream. There's famine going on. He sent him to a brook. So he provided him water naturally. But he sent ravens that brought him bread and meat. And that's kind of a, on the miracle side there. And I like what Tony Evans said about that. He says, yeah, the ravens brought him a sandwich. So that's pretty good. That's in Kings 17, 3 through 6. And then we have Daniel and the lion's den, which is in Daniel chapter 6, verses 16 to 24. And there was some trickery going on, and they tricked the king into putting forth some irreversible legislation that said you had to bow down before him, and Daniel didn't do it. And this was the sole reason that got, I reckon that law got put in place. These bad guys wanted Daniel to get rid of. Well, the king couldn't reverse it, so Daniel got thrown in the lion's den. The king said he hoped that Daniel's God saved him from the lions, and he did. He closed the mouths of the lions. That morning, when the king called out, and Daniel said, hey, here I am, I'm fine. He had the bad guys sewn in, and the lions' mouths were opened, and they tore them from limb to limb, and pretty well died. So anyway, so that's a good one. Probably, I don't know if God's going to use this duck for something, but anyway, probably one of the two best stories when you think of animals is Jonah and the great fish. Notice I didn't say whale. Most people say whale, and I haven't gone back to the original dialects, but I don't know, in the versions of the Bible I have, it always says a fish. Now, there are many writers to the Bible, but only one author, and that's God. And God's the inventor of all life, and he knows the difference between a fish and a whale being a mammal and a fish being a fish. So I don't believe it was a whale, I believe it was a fish. But anyway, Jonah's running from God, and he's on the boat. God wanted him to go to Nineveh. Well, a big storm comes up, and the sailors figure out through the casting of lots that Jonah's the problem. And so they throw him overboard, and the seas calm down. And God had the great fish come and swallow him whole. So Jonah got to spend some quality time inside the fish's stomach. And later, the fish vomited him out on shore. And anyway, that's a sermon within itself on Jonah, He ended up going and preaching what was probably one of the greatest results of preaching in the history of mankind. How many people were saved and rescued in the town of Nineveh. So anyway, that's really interesting. Of course, you got when Jesus and his disciples and people were talking about taxes and stuff, he tells one of them to go and catch a fish, and said the first fish you catch, to open its mouth, and there'll be a coin there, and that's what they use to pay their taxes. Kind of wish I could get that out of the fish in my pond, but haven't been able to do so. Later, coming into town, you know, and Jesus tells his disciples to go and into town and where to go, and they'll find a colt tied up there and to bring it to him. If anybody says anything, say the teacher wants the colt, and that's what they did. He provided the colt. That's in Matthew 21, 5 through 7. It's also mentioned in Zechariah 9:9. And then you got Peter. And Jesus told him that he would deny him 3 times before the cock crows. And he used the rooster. So, but let's go to modern times. In 2009, we got a dog. It was a puppy. We named her Pocahontas. We didn't know at that time, but God did. Don't think Pocahontas knew then, but she figured it out later, that she had a mission from God to do in our family. Some of y'all may know that my youngest daughter was in a very, very bad car accident in 2020. She almost died. She required 10 hours. She had to be life flighted to Grady, had to get blood en route, and had 10 hours of surgery all over her body. She's got, you know, more hardware in her than Ace has. And she healed up real well. Physically, it took a lot of therapy and stuff, time, but she had some dark times. She had a lot of depression, and I think I can understand that. I can, you know, see that happening to me. But during these dark times, she leaned heavily on the dog, Pocahontas. And now she also had lots of prayers, lots of people loving on her, and some good, really good Christian counseling. And it all came together. But a big part of it was Pocahontas. And anyway, well, Poca saw her through the dark times. And the Lord called Pocahontas home. So, anyway, we've just got another dog. I don't want to say we replaced Pocahontas because Pocahontas cannot be replaced. But we got a 2-year-old female Siberian Husky, a beautiful dog. And it was kind of a private adoption, and we're pretty certain that the dog was not taken very good care of. And she shows signs of being physically abused. Like the first day we had her, I walked in, was going to sweep up some dog hair, and she saw the broom in my hand, and she ran and cowered in the corner. I'm pretty sure she thought I was going to beat her with it. And then I was walking her that day, and the leash got wrapped around my leg, and I raised up a foot to come out of it instead of twisting around, and she cowered down like she thought I was going to kick her. Well, she's been surrounded by love. So now we had a dog that ministered to my family. Now we're ministering to the dog. And she may have a mission from God to do something to help us, but right now we have a mission to help her. So anyway, her name is Bellatrix. Now, if you're old like me, you've never heard that name. So I asked Leah, how did you come up with that name? And she said, it's a character in Harry Potter. I said, okay. Probably not where I would have gone to pick a name, but that's okay. I said, well, was Bellatrix a good character or a bad character? And much to my surprise, she said, she's a bad character. And I'm thinking, oh me. Then she looks down at the dog and says, but she's going to redeem that name. And immediately I thought, wow, my name's been redeemed. It's been redeemed and written in the Lamb's Book of Life. And I thought, okay, I can live with that name now, because I can tell people that story. I got one more animal story, and it's a little different. It comes from Judges 15:16. And in this story, Samson uses the jawbone of an ass to kill 1,000 Philistines. So I reckon that jawbone had to be at the right place at the right time for that to happen, but it did. But the reason I mentioned that was I wanted to quote my father, J.E. Tumlin, better known as Pawpaw, and he told me one time, God used the jawbone of an ass. Surely he could use me. So I think he could use me and you too. So let's let him use us. Thank you. Have a great day. Jesus loves you. Bye.